Yeah, the Democrats, they are drunk on power. Biden wants more of it. Down in Fulton County, Georgia, the district attorney there, Fanni Willis, thought that she could meddle in the election. Her team was coordinating with the Biden White House even. Thought she could meddle in the election, and so she's pursuing a case against Trump right now, designed to do that very thing. And one of the people who works for her is her boyfriend, who happens to still be married to someone who is in the middle of a messy divorce proceeding. And the spurned wife is now trying to unseal all of the available documents and tell people what the hell's going on here. And he's angry about this. So it's a big old mess, but it couldn't happen to a better group of people. And Joe DiGenova joins us now. He's a legal analyst and former U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. Joe, good to talk to you as always, sir.
Hey, good to talk to you, Vince.
So the update here is that Nathan Wade, Fanni Willis's lover and subordinate, is now trying to prevent all of these divorce records, which are basically financial documents showing how he was taking tons of taxpayer cash and then spending it on Fanni Willis. He's trying to keep that from going public. Why would that be?
Well, all of a sudden he's into secrecy. He filed a motion to reseal some of the documents that the judge had unsealed because he thought they shouldn't be sealed. Mr. Wade is in deep trouble, whether it involves his divorce or whether it involves his relationship with Fanni Willis or his role in the case against President Trump and 14 other defendants. He and Miss Willis may have jeopardized the entire case by virtue of their relationship, their travel together, the expenditure of public funds to him, the conflict of interest that Fanni Willis has with him as a result of their personal relationship, all of it undisclosed, by the way, to the county and the state of Georgia. And there may have been crimes committed by them in the course of this because of that non-disclosure. Certainly unethical behavior and certainly violations of the contracting rules of the county of Fulton and the state of Georgia. So yeah. I think Mr. Wade wants as little as possible made public. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to prevent the records of the money from becoming public,
right?
Because the Georgia State Senate can subpoena his bank records, and it's just a matter of time.
Well, it's just, this is a marvelous story for so many reasons, but one of them is that she hires this guy. He's totally unqualified for the role, but she's sleeping with him, so yeah. Obviously. And so she hires him. She pays him millions of dollars, not of her own money, of course. It's taxpayer money paid for by both Georgia and federal taxpayers. And then he turns around and spends a ton on her, of course. He's buying her fancy trips, and she never discloses on any of her financial forms that this is happening. And the thing that amazes me about this, in addition to all those details, Joe, is this is one of the highest profile legal cases in the country. And that is how brazen she's being. She thought she could easily get away with this and that nobody would bat an eye.
Well, I think also she's not as smart as she thinks she is. And my own personal opinion, having watched her, I don't think she's very bright at all. I think her performance throughout this has not only shown bad judgment, but a lack of real intellectual substance. Anybody who would do this is stupid. It's just not the arrogance of it. It's the stupidity of it. So, she may not have even thought about whether or not this crossed any lines. She may be so dumb and so uninformed legally and ethically that she may not have even thought she was crossing any lines. That, to me, is what I think is the most frightening part, is that she's dumb. She's stupid. She's not the kind of person you want wielding this type of authority.
Well, help her out. Let's talk about some legal terms. When she's trying to prosecute racketeering against Donald Trump right now. So just so I can understand it, What does it mean? What does racketeering mean in common parlance?
Well, the Georgia statute is a little different than the federal statute, but generally what they mean is this was a statute that was designed in the late 1960s by a Notre Dame University law professor, and it was adopted by the federal government. It's called the Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization Act, and it was designed to take down organized crime and drug cartels by creating something called a corrupt organization. You can look at a group of people who you used to charge with conspiracy, and you say they acted in such a way that they acted as a group and created this entity that is known as the enterprise, the corrupt enterprise. And in her case, she says the corrupt enterprise was President Trump and these 14 or 15 other people acting together to try and undermine the election in Georgia by making a couple of phone calls. It is the most ludicrous, ridiculous application of a RICO statute to a set of facts. This case should be dismissed. It should have been dismissed a long time ago, but it hasn't been yet, although this Judge McAfee, who has the case, is holding some hearings, and maybe ultimately he will dismiss the case.
Right,
I don't think there's any doubt the case should be dismissed.
Okay, so based on what you just described, let me float a hypothetical past you. What if you got a group of people together, say 2 people, who decided that they would defraud taxpayers, take money, and then use that for their own enrichment and enjoyment and not disclose any of it in a criminal enterprise? Could it be possible that that satisfies the definition of racketeering?
I would certainly try to make it so if I were down in Georgia and were given the opportunity to prosecute this case. I would be as creative as she has been in trying to make it a crime. Probably not. Probably it's just garden variety fraud and conflict. But if it were big enough, I mean, why not give it a shot? Probably there aren't enough people involved in it. Although if you could find out that there were more people who knew about it and condoned it, you might have a group large enough to create a racketeering enterprise.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's like the definition of the word few. It's like you have to have at least 3 people to reach it. But, I mean, crazier racketeering charges have been tried in Georgia. Just look at Donald Trump.
Yes, and you're looking at one of them right now.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. That's crazy. All right. So you mentioned the Georgia State Senate a moment ago, and that is where some more interesting action is happening here because the State Senate is launching an investigation into Fanni Willis. Now, so for those of us who are annoyed by every blue ribbon commission and random panel that the government launches and tells us they're doing something, is this a more meaningful step when the Georgia State Senate says, actually, we're launching a full-blown investigation into one government official?
Well, that's certainly significant. I'll say that. It's not. It sort of looks like what the Democrats did to Trump twice with the impeachment, but in this case, we have evidence, clear and specific evidence of official misconduct already on the record. And so since money was spent, state money, as well as federal money, the Georgia State Senate has established a special committee to investigate Miss Willis and her conduct and that of her office and the county and Mr. Wade and everybody involved in this case.
Yes.
So it's really, I mean, they certainly have a legitimate basis to do it. It's not political, even though some of the state senators, especially the African-American senators, claim it was all racially motivated, which is kind of an embarrassment for them to say that. They ought to be smart enough and have progressed along enough in the political process to admit that sometimes some of their black brethren and sisters do wrong and commit crimes or violate ethics. If you can't admit that, I mean, why are you in the ball game, for heaven's sake? And most of them who got up and objected on the basis of race made themselves and the Georgia Senate look stupid.
The racist attitude is thinking that your skin color prevents you from having a conscience, prevents you from doing the right thing. You know, right? So the holding someone to low standards because of their skin color is a racist sentiment.
Well, it is, and yet they do it with such ease. I was watching some of these black state senators get up and defend her, claiming racism, and it was very embarrassing. They looked childish.
Well, she lied too. You know, she did this too. She went to a black church 2 weekends ago now, and she lied in front of the congregation. She claimed that she was paying all of the attorneys who were working for her the same exact amount of money, and they were only attacking the black guy. They're only scrutinizing him. It turns out that was a lie too. She was paying him $100 more per hour than the actual RICO expert that was working for her. So that's correct. She's pretty brazen, honestly, which makes her a Democrat.
Well, I think I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, she's pretty full of herself, and also though, again, I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier. I don't think she's as smart as she thinks she is. You don't do this kind of stuff if you're that bright. She's really stupid. This is really stupid stuff that she's done. How
concerned are you about the intersection that the Biden White House has had with all of these varying investigations into Donald Trump, from everything from Jack Smith's case to Alvin Bragg to Fanni Willis to Letitia James? Do you think there's a meaningful epicenter at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now?
Oh, I do indeed. Just the way the president has lied repeatedly about his relationship with his son and his son's business partners. The president has lied about the involvement of the White House, himself, the vice president, the White House counsel's office in not only the Trump matters, but also these other matters involving these state officials. So I don't think there's any doubt that the White House has been complicit both in the federal cases and the state cases. One of the senior Justice Department officials left the Justice Department to go and work for Alvin Bragg before this case was brought up in New York, the Alvin Bragg case. So there's plenty of evidence, both documentary and physical and other evidence, that the White House has been deeply involved in all of these cases against President Trump.
And that would include the efforts to remove him from the ballot across the country. Today, Joe Biden was asked about that. He said something to the effect of, oh, I think if it's fine, he's on the ballot. That's interesting because all of his political allies across the country and all the big money donors in that party are working feverishly to deprive voters of the chance to even select this guy. Illinois today, luckily, their state election board said, actually, no, Trump can stay on the ballot. So if it's too crazy for even Illinois, you realize they're engaged in a very crazy gambit right now.
Well, Cook County doesn't have a conscience, and neither does Illinois. So there's only nefarious reasons that they would want Trump on the ballot, whatever they might be. We can't fathom those reasons. But when the president gets sort of his usual off-the-cuff flaky answers to things. You never know what he says. He doesn't know half the time what he's saying. He's incoherent. Whatever he says to me, I just don't even listen to him anymore because he just lies. Everything that comes out of his mouth is an untruth. And that's why I can't believe he still has 35, 40% of the American people that think he's doing a good job. Who are these morons?
Yeah, I wonder too. It was I forget what the numbers were, but I was just citing border numbers. It was at 13%. 13% say everything's great on the border and nothing needs to be fixed. And it's like, well, they all need to see their doctors, those 13%. That's like the craziest thing I've ever heard.
And just remember, so many illegals have come into the country that some of them are being polled in these surveys. So that's part of the problem. The pool of people being surveyed has gotten bigger because of the 8 million people that have entered the country. So you never know. Could be a bunch of illegals answering these questions.
Yeah, the pollsters calling around. Is crime a problem? It's all criminals on the phone. No, it's totally fine. Everything's totally fine. Thank you very much. Joe DiGenova, just the best. Always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you.
You bet, Vince. Take care.
Joe DiGenova, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. One of the good ones, not like the current guy. It's